Today we're going to talk about lesson 9.2. It's the surface area of a prism and a cylinder. Okay, let's look at the warm-up. Find the area of a rectangle with sides 6 and 9. Okay, for the area of a rectangle, it is base times height. So all you'd have to do there is 6 times 9, which would be 54. Always make sure you label it. It is area, so that's going to be square units. 11 and 4, that would just be base times height. 11 times 4, that would be 44 square units. Now, number 2, if the area of a square is 36 units squared, what are the lengths of the sides? Now, square is going to be all sides the same. So if you're finding the area, that's going to be side times side. So what times what equals 36? That's one way to look at it. Or you could just find the square root of 36. Either way, you know the length of the sides are going to be 6. And it just says units. So each side would be 6. All right, now, this is a continuation of 9.1 because we're talking about prisms again, where the bases are congruent, and then you have the lateral rectangles going around, okay? Those are the lateral faces, and then each of these where they meet, those are all the edges, okay? Now, a right prism is a prism where all the lateral faces are perpendicular. So in other words, it would look like this picture here. They would be perpendicular, okay, to the base. An oblique prism is a prism that leans to one side and the height is outside the prism. So notice that it's leaning over, okay, and the actual height is going to be outside. And we kind of talked about that before when we talked about parallelograms and certain kinds of triangles, that the height is not going to be your slanted edge, okay? Your actual height would be from on the outside there of the prism. Now, let's take a look at the formula for finding the surface area of a prism, okay? Basically, what surface area is, there's really 2 ways you can do this. I'm just going to tell you. You can think of all the different faces, so I can use this one as an example. You can find the area of this rectangle, this one, this one, this one, and this one, all the way around. Then you would find the area of the pentagon on the top, and then the area of the pentagon on the bottom, and then you would add them all up, and that would give you the total surface area, okay? So that's what you're really doing. You're finding the area of all of the faces. So that's one way to do it. Or you can follow this formula, okay? So let me just tell you, it takes a little bit of time, but it's not a big deal. This large P, okay, stands for the perimeter of the base. So you're going to find the perimeter of the base, and that gets multiplied by the height of the prism, okay? Those 2 get multiplied together. Then these 2 get multiplied together, and this is just simply 2, and then that big B there stands for the area of the base. Then you multiply those 2 together. After you multiply those 2, you'll get a number. You multiply these 2, you'll get a number, and then you add the 2 of them together. I kind of marked on top of my formula, but that's what you'll do. You'll add the 2 together after you've multiplied them. So let me repeat. That P stands for the perimeter of the base. That gets multiplied by the height of the prism, and then the area of the base multiplied by 2, and then add those 2 numbers together after you've done that. All right, so let's take a look then at example 1. It's showing my first prism, okay? So you have to take a look at that, and I'm just going to, here we go. I'm going to write the formula on there, which is PH plus 2B, okay? So my perimeter is going to be adding all the sides. So I know I have 7. I know I have 24. Well, I don't have the other side. Now, I've seen some people before in the past do this. Kind of outline their base. And the reason they do that is because this is the perimeter of the base. This is the area of the base. And it just kind of helps you stay focused on what's your base. Okay, obviously, your perimeter is going to be a triangle. Your area of your base is going to be a triangle. Okay, so you have to think about the formula for the area of a triangle. Okay, now you guys that like to take shortcuts and everything else, you just better slow your roll a little bit on this. You don't have that many questions to do, but each one takes a little bit of time, and I'm taking a little bit longer on these first few that I do with you. Okay, so obviously here I'm going to add my 3 sides of my triangle. Now I'm missing one, so guess what? It's a right triangle. Pythagorean theorem. Just not going to get away from that this year, you guys. I know it seems like we've done them forever. Okay, so that would be 49 plus 24 squared is 576. Add 49 and 576, you get 625. And then I'm going to find the square root of that. So that C is going to equal 25. Okay, so now I have my sides, all right? So I'm going to break this down like this, so that way when you look at your notes, you're going to know exactly what to do. You take 7 plus 24 plus 25. That's one number. The height of your prism, that's going to be this number right here. That's your height. So that gets multiplied by 25. Then you add, okay? This is obviously just 2 times area of my base. Now remember, for a triangle, okay, it's going to be, and if you need to write that to the side, base times height divided by 2. So if you look at your triangle, base is 7, height is 24. So you're going to do 7 times 24 divided by 2. Okay? So now add 7 plus 24 plus 25. That's going to give you 56. And that gets multiplied by 25. Then you add 2. 7 times 24 divided by 2 is going to be 84. So now 56 times 25 is 1568 plus 2 times 84 is 168. Add the 2 together and you get 1736. Doesn't tell me, so it is units. Now for surface area, you're still going to put square there because you're talking about area. So that's how that would work, okay? So let's do another one. This time we have a rectangular prism. I'm going to write the formula again, okay? It's a little repetitive, but that's all right. We're going to get it correct. All right, so for my perimeter of my base, I want to take a look at that because I know that I have 10, 17, okay? So that means on the back side, back here, I would also have 10, and then across the way on the bottom, I would also have 17. So for that perimeter, you would do 10 plus 10 plus 17 plus 17. I know some of you like to break that down into 2 times 10 plus 2 times 17. I'm okay with that. Whatever you do to get it correct, I'm good with that, okay? But that's what you would do there. And then we have times the height. The height of it is going to be 4. That's how tall it is. That gets added to 2 times the area of the base. Now think about your base is a rectangle. And these nets here kind of help you look at what your base is, but that's going to be 10 times 17 because that's base times height of a rectangle. Now, let's get all these things together here. This is going to be 54 times 4 plus 2 times 170. 54 times 4 is 216 plus 2 times 170 is 340. Add those two together, 556. This one does tell me it's centimeters, so it's square centimeters because it's area. Okay, so it's not so hard. It's just a little time consuming, but like I said, on your paper, there's not very many questions, so just go slow on the ones that you do have. All right, now let's take a look at cylinders. A cylinder is a solid with congruent circular bases. Okay, the circles on top and bottom. They are in parallel planes. Okay, these are parallel. The space between the circles is enclosed. Just think like a can of green beans or a can of oil. Okay, that's what a cylinder is. A cylinder has a radius and a height. It has a radius because it has a circle on the top, okay? And of course the height is really like how tall it is. Now, a cylinder can also be oblique, okay? Like we also had the oblique prism. That is just where it's slanted a little bit. It does have the actual height though, okay? It'll still have its radius, okay? Be careful there also, like I've been telling you guys before about circles. It might have the diameter written on there, so just be cautious, okay? All right, now let's take a look at finding the surface area, okay? Here is the example here is the formula. There we go. For finding the surface area of a cylinder, okay? So what you do is you're going to multiply 2 times pi times the radius. That's not the diameter, okay? So don't confuse that. Times the height. And that gets added to 2 times pi times radius squared, not radius times 2. So you can see how this can get confusing if you rush. All right, so don't rush. Take your time, okay? So let's take a look at example 3, where they want us to find the total surface area of the cylinder. My radius is 4 and my height is 12. So let's take a look at the formula. 2 pi r times the height plus 2 times pi r squared. Really, pi r squared, if you remember, that's finding the area of the circle that's on the top, and then you multiply and times 2 because that's the top and the bottom, okay? The other is just a little bit different, but that I thought you might recognize because we just finished area of a circle. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. This one, you can just multiply straight across. So you have 2 times pi times your radius, which is 4, times your height, which is 12, okay? And then that gets added to 2 times pi times your radius squared, which would be 4 squared. Just be careful there, okay? Because sometimes they might give you the diameter. Now, when you go through both of these, when you multiply these out straight across, 301.6, yes, round to the 10th as always. And then here you'd multiply 2 times pi times 4 squared. You would get 100.5. Add those two together, and you get 402.1. It doesn't tell me anything, so that's just going to be square units. Okay, now, it's the same thing, it just doesn't have a picture. The radius of a cylinder is 8 feet. The height is 21 feet. Find the total surface area. So we have my radius, we have the height. That's exactly what we need. So let's plug it into the formula. Okay, so 2 times pi times my radius times the height plus 2 times pi times radius squared. 2 times pi times 8 times 21 would be 1055.6, and that gets added to 2 times pi times 8 squared is 402.1, and that equals, when you add them together, 1457.7. And this one's feet, so we actually can put square feet there. Okay. All right, and that concludes our lesson on surface area of prisms and cylinders.